The hall was full of light. Round tables. White flowers. Soft music. Rich people stood in small groups. They held glasses of wine. Emma stood near the window. She wore a simple blue dress. She did not smile much. She did not need to. Tonight was important for the hospital. Tonight was not easy for her. She knew Richard was in this room. Richard saw her first. He walked toward her with a big smile. It was not a kind smile. It was a smile with a plan. "Emma," he said loudly. "I did not expect to see you here." People near them turned to listen. Emma's chest felt tight. She lifted her chin. She said nothing yet. Richard's eyes moved across the room. He wanted an audience. "Everyone," he said, "this is Emma. She used to work with me." A few guests smiled politely. They did not understand yet. "She left the hospital," Richard continued, "because she could not handle the pressure." It was not true. But it sounded true when he said it. Emma felt her hands go cold. Old memories woke up inside her. She stayed very still. More guests turned to look. Someone whispered to a friend. Richard felt powerful. He always felt powerful in rooms like this. "Some people," he said, "are just not strong enough for this job." Emma looked at him. Her voice was calm. Too calm. "Is that what you tell everyone, Richard?" she asked. The room went quiet for a second. Richard laughed, a little too loud. "It's the truth, Emma." He turned back to the small crowd, proud of himself. He did not notice the hospital director walking to the small stage. He did not notice her checking her microphone. He did not notice the side door slowly opening. Emma did. The director tapped the microphone gently. The room turned toward her. "Before dinner, I have one very special announcement. Tonight, for the first time, our hospital's biggest supporter agreed to join us in person." Richard smiled, still thinking only about himself. Then the director said a name, and Richard's smile disappeared. 3 years earlier, Emma loved her job. She loved the hospital halls. She loved the small moments with patients. A kind word. A gentle hand. She became a nurse because her grandmother was sick when Emma was young. A nurse helped her family through hard days. Emma never forgot that. She wanted to give that same comfort to other people. For years, she did exactly that. Richard was her director. At first, he seemed friendly. He praised her work. He gave her more responsibility. But slowly, things changed. He asked her for small favors. Then he asked for something bigger. He wanted her to change a patient's medical record. It was not a small mistake. It could hurt someone. It could hide the truth. Emma refused. Richard did not like refusal. He did not like being questioned. After that day, everything became difficult for Emma. Her schedule changed without warning. Her work was criticized for small things. Other nurses noticed, but they were afraid to speak up. Emma tried to stay strong. She loved her patients too much to quit easily. But the pressure never stopped. One morning, Richard called her into his office. He told her she was not a good fit anymore. No warning. No real reason. Just a folder and a locked door behind her. Emma walked out of the hospital that day with a small box of her things. She did not cry in front of anyone. She cried later, alone in her car. For a while, she stopped believing in her own strength. Months passed slowly. Emma worked quiet jobs. She avoided hospitals completely. Then, at a small charity event, she met Daniel. He did not ask about her job title. He did not ask about her salary. He asked why her eyes looked tired. He actually waited for her answer. Slowly, carefully, Emma let herself trust someone again. Daniel never once treated her like she was less than enough. Emma never told Daniel every detail about Richard. It still hurt too much. Daniel knew only that something painful had happened at that hospital. He never pushed her to explain more than she was ready to share. Life moved forward. Emma found peace in small, quiet days. Then, one afternoon, an envelope arrived at their home. It was an invitation to the hospital's biggest gala of the year. Emma and Daniel arrived at the hospital's event hall together. He wore a simple dark suit. He never liked expensive clothes. He liked comfort and quiet colors. No one at the door knew his name. That was exactly how he wanted it. Emma held his arm gently. Her heart was already beating fast. This was the same hospital where everything once fell apart for her. Walking through those doors again was not easy. Inside, the hall sparkled with light. Guests smiled and shook hands. Daniel stayed close to Emma. He did not need attention in this room. He preferred watching quietly from the side, listening more than talking. Emma scanned the crowd. Then she saw him. Richard. He stood near the center, laughing loudly with a group of donors. He had not changed at all. Richard turned and saw Emma. His eyes lit up with something cold. He walked over immediately, confident, almost enjoying the moment. Emma, he said again, a little louder than needed. Still coming to these things? Emma stayed calm. I was invited, she said simply. Richard glanced at Daniel beside her. He barely looked twice. And who is this? He asked, already losing interest. This is my husband, Daniel, Emma said quietly. Before Richard could answer, a board member walked up and shook Daniel's hand. Mr. Whitfield, the man said warmly, we're honored you finally came in person. Richard blinked. Whitfield, he repeated, confused. Sorry, should I know that name? The board member smiled politely and simply said, you will, before walking away. Richard's smile faltered for the first time all night. He turned back to Emma, trying to recover his confidence. Nice suit, he said, forcing a laugh. Simple. I like simple. Emma said nothing. Daniel only watched him, calm and unreadable. Richard laughed again, louder this time, waving to his donor friends. But his eyes kept drifting back toward Daniel, uneasy now. Two more board members whispered near the stage, glancing their way. Richard frowned. Why did that name feel so familiar? The whispers spread slowly across the room, table by table. A young board member approached Daniel directly this time. Mr. Whitfield, Will you say a few words before the announcement? Richard stepped closer, inserting himself into the conversation. Announcement about what, exactly? The board member looked at Richard, uncertain. You'll hear soon enough, Richard. Daniel said nothing. He only offered a small, polite nod. Richard's patience thinned. Is there some secret I'm missing tonight? Relax, Richard, Daniel said simply, his voice calm but firm. You'll understand soon. Something about that calm answer irritated Richard more than any insult could. He turned to Emma instead, needing to feel powerful again. Still can't handle direct questions, I see. Guess some things don't change. Emma's jaw tightened, but she held her composure. Daniel's expression did not change, but his eyes did. Are you okay? Daniel asked Emma quietly, stepping half a step closer to her. I think people are starting to notice something, Emma whispered back. Do you want to leave? Daniel asked gently. We can go anytime you want. Emma thought about it for a moment. Old fear still lived inside her. But something new sat beside that fear tonight. Something steadier. No, she said finally. I want to stay. Richard, still unsettled, tried one more jab. Careful, Whitfield. Emma has a habit of exaggerating her own importance. A nearby guest turned sharply, surprised anyone would speak that way tonight. Daniel's eyes softened only for Emma, then hardened slightly as he turned to Richard. He said nothing yet. He only checked his watch. Across the room, Richard's confidence had started quietly cracking. The lights near the stage brightened. Music slowly faded to silence. The hospital director walked back up to the small podium. She tapped the microphone once, and the whole room turned to listen. Richard turned too, still smiling, still sure of his place in the room. Tonight, the director began, we finally reveal a name many of you have wondered about. The anonymous donor behind our hospital's entire new wing. The room went completely silent. Everyone leaned forward slightly. For years, this donor's name had been a hospital secret. Doctors whispered about him. Nurses wondered about him. No one truly knew him. The director smiled, clearly enjoying this long-awaited moment. This person, she said, chose to stay anonymous out of pure humility. Tonight, he agreed to finally step forward. Richard felt a strange, cold feeling rise in his chest. He glanced around the room, searching for a clue, a hint, anything. The director took a breath and spoke clearly into the microphone. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Daniel Whitfield. For one long second, nobody moved. Nobody breathed. Then the entire room turned toward Emma and Daniel. Richard's smile completely disappeared from his face. His mind raced backward through the last 10 minutes of conversation. Nice suit. Simple. I like simple. His own careless words echoed painfully. He had mocked the man who quietly funded half the hospital's future. He had mocked him right in front of Emma. Right in front of everyone. His stomach twisted into a tight, sick knot. The director continued, her voice warm and proud. Daniel has funded our new wing, our research center, and countless patient programs. And starting next month, he will also serve as our incoming board chairman. Gasps and quiet applause spread across the room like a wave. Richard's legs suddenly felt weak beneath him. Board chairman. That meant Daniel would review every director's performance. Every decision. Every past complaint. Including his. Daniel did not smile at the applause. He simply looked across the room, calm and steady. His eyes found Richard immediately, as if he had been waiting for this exact moment. He gently let go of Emma's hand and straightened his jacket. "Excuse me," he said quietly to Emma. "I need to speak with someone." Emma's heart pounded, but she nodded once, understanding completely. Daniel began walking, slow and deliberate, straight toward Richard. Daniel crossed the room slowly. He did not rush. He never needed to rush. Richard stood frozen near the drinks table, his glass forgotten in his hand. Guests quietly stepped aside, sensing something important was about to happen. Daniel stopped directly in front of him. His voice was calm, almost gentle. "Richard," he said. "That is your name, correct?" Richard swallowed hard. "Yes." "Mr. Whitfield, I did not realize." "I know you didn't," Daniel said simply. No anger in his voice. Just quiet certainty. "I have a few questions for you." "Simple ones." Richard nodded quickly, sweat forming at his hairline. "Why was Emma dismissed from this hospital 3 years ago?" Richard opened his mouth, then closed it again. "There were performance concerns." "That's interesting," Daniel said. "Her patient records say otherwise." "I've read her file," Daniel continued. "Every review before that year was excellent." Richard's face turned pale. He had not expected anyone to look that closely. "Why was her formal complaint against you never investigated?" Daniel asked. The room around them had gone almost completely silent now, listening. I don't know what complaint you mean," Richard said, his voice shaking slightly. "I think you do," Daniel said quietly. "I have a copy of it." He nodded to an assistant standing nearby. A folder was placed gently in his hands. "Falsifying a patient record," Daniel read aloud, calm and clear. "Refused by staff nurse Emma Whitfield. Staff member terminated 1 week later. No formal review conducted." Richard's hands trembled. Every excuse in his mind suddenly felt small and useless. "Why," Daniel asked, "did you humiliate her tonight, in front of this entire room?" Richard had no answer at all. The hospital director walked over quickly, her face full of concern. "Mr. Whitfield, I had no idea about any of this history." "I promise you." "I believe you," Daniel said calmly, turning to her. "This isn't about tonight's dinner. This is a pattern. And patterns deserve a proper review." The director nodded firmly. "I will call an emergency board meeting tomorrow morning." Richard stood completely still, the folder's words echoing in his mind. The next morning, the boardroom felt cold and very quiet. Long table. Serious faces. No music. No smiles this time. Richard sat alone on one side, his hands folded tightly together. Daniel sat at the head of the table, calm as always. The hospital director sat beside him, holding a thin folder. Emma sat near the back, nervous but steady. the chairman began. We are here to review a serious complaint. Richard, you may explain your side first, he said simply. With respect, Richard said, straightening in his chair, I made a difficult call under pressure. Falsifying records happens more than anyone admits. I was protecting the hospital's reputation, not myself. Emma was talented, but she was young, and she refused to trust my judgment. I take responsibility for being harsh. I don't take responsibility for being wrong. It was, for a moment, almost convincing. A few board members exchanged glances. Daniel opened the folder slowly. Let's look at the actual record. He read Emma's reviews aloud. Excellent. Reliable. Trusted by patients. He read the date of her refusal to falsify a record. He read the date of her termination. 1 week apart. Too close to be random. Richard's excuses grew smaller with every line Daniel read. Emma, the chairman said gently, would you like to respond? Emma stood slowly. Her hands were steady now, not shaking. Richard says he was protecting the hospital's reputation, Emma said. But the record he wanted changed wasn't a small error. It was a medication dosage. If I had signed it, a real person could have been hurt, and no one would have ever known why. I have the original chart. I kept a copy the day I refused, because I was afraid exactly this would happen someday. She placed a folded paper on the table. This isn't about reputation. It's about what almost happened to someone who trusted us. The room was silent. Richard had no response left. Daniel closed the folder gently. This was never about money, he said. It was never about titles or donations either, he added, looking around the table. It was about a hospital protecting the wrong person for 3 years. The chairman nodded slowly, writing something on his notepad. We will vote now, he said. Richard, please step outside. Richard waited outside the boardroom for what felt like hours. It was only 15 minutes. But every minute felt heavy. Finally, the door opened. The chairman's face was serious. Richard, the board has voted. Your position here has ended, effective today. Richard nodded slowly. He did not argue. There was nothing left to say. He picked up his coat and walked out of the hospital for the last time. Inside, the director turned to Emma with a warm, hopeful smile. Emma, your old position is open again. We would be honored to have you back. You were one of the best nurses this hospital ever had. Emma looked at the offer for a long moment, thinking carefully. Daniel watched her quietly, ready to support whatever she chose. The room waited for her answer. Before Emma spoke, Daniel took her hand and said quietly, I knew about Richard almost from the beginning. I could have ended his career the week we met. I didn't, because I wanted you to tell me when you were ready, not because I forced your hand. Tonight wasn't about me stepping in for you, Emma. It was about you finally being ready to stand in the room. Emma looked at him, her eyes full of quiet gratitude. Then she turned back to the director. Thank you, she said softly. That means more than you know. But I don't think I want to come back to this building. A few people looked surprised. The director tilted her head gently. I want to open a small clinic, Emma continued, in a neighborhood that needs one. Somewhere patients are never afraid to ask questions or refuse unfair requests. Daniel smiled, unsurprised. He had already guessed this answer. "I'll fund it," Daniel said simply. "Whatever you need, however you want to build it." Emma smiled at him, her eyes soft with gratitude, not surprise. This was never about revenge for her. It never had been. It was about being heard, finally, after years of staying silent. It was about choosing her own path, not returning to an old one. For the first time in years, Emma felt completely free. Months later, Emma's small clinic opened its doors quietly. No gala. No spotlight. Just simple, honest care for people who needed it. Patients came in nervous and left feeling truly listened to. Emma often thought about that night at the gala, but without anger now. She had learned something important through all of it. You do not need to prove your worth to people who already decided to underestimate you.